Alright, here are my predictions for Road to UFC 5 semifinals, and basically Maheshate versus Darrius Flowers main event. If we're being honest, Maheshate versus Flowers. And starting off, we have Hyun Park versus Farida Abdueva. We didn't see much from Abdueva. You know, she's young, has an inch, height advantage, a good 4-inch reach advantage as well. The thing is that Hyun Park does have some good, she gets gritty, she has good clinch work. We didn't see that much of Abdueva, you know what I mean? We didn't see a lot. She had a win, the officials thought it was an eye poke, so it was a no contest at first. But it was changed to a TKO because of it. And we didn't get to see too much. I mean, we saw some kicks, some clinch boxing, but other than that, we didn't get to see really a full fight. And Hyun Park made it more gritty against her fight with what's her face, Dong, So, I'm going with, this could be really dumb or really smart. I want to go with Hyun Park, but a little can crushing, just a little. Good win in her last. Okay, this is a can, or just a debutant. I don't know, man. I don't think these picks are as clear cut as possible. I can see Park getting it done, to be honest. I can kind of see the grittiness come out, but I'll have to trust the gut and go with Abdueva. I wanted to go with Hyun Park just because of the grittiness. She is older, so she might show, that heart will get you through. But I don't think that's what will happen here. So I have Farida Abdueva decision. Moving on. Chungreng Koren versus Ryo Tajima. My nose. I'm going with Ryo Tajima. Koren has a really bad chin, and that's no joke. I'm surprised he beat Miyaguchi, but not so much as to shock. He really didn't look good in that fight. He was kind of just wearing on Miyaguchi, and that's how he won. Miyaguchi looked levels above him on the feet, to be honest, but he dropped Koren in, I believe, the second when he was going into a charge takedown or some shit like that, like a closing the distance shot. My bad. And Tajima, a close fight with Haitao. I think Tajima's a very easy one to predict here. I think a round one finish will do him well. I just don't see where Koren is any better. You know what I mean? I guess the grappling, he might be just an itty bit better. Other than that, I don't see where he's, amazing in one part of his game. I think Tajima will get him out of there. If Koren wins this, I mean, he did lose to another guy who's also on the road to UFC. He's up in the upper echelon here. He did get TKO'd by him. So that does not put a lot of faith in, me picking him, but Tajima has definitely better wins. He has more experienced wins. Koren does have a few decent wins, lost to Dhant. I mean, these aren't inherently bad. This is bad, but I don't think Koren is, special in any department. I mean, he's kind of, he's just like a blanket, if we're being honest. He can wear on you. He's just not going to be a very physically imposing guy, which is what you kind of have to be in this kind of matchup where you're smaller than the guy you're about to fight, So I got Tajima just round one demolish finish. Koren is Indian. That's pretty much all you need to know. Moving on. Dagiisuren Chagnaadorj versus Young Jae Song. My bad. Young Jae Song. Random ass name. I thought Jin Oi was the better fighter of those two when they fought. I personally thought that Jin had Song in a bunch of trouble, but Chungadorj is also kind of, he's a little chinny. He's a grappler. He can grapple. He's definitely that's his strongest suit for sure. He had a very close fight with Reg Zhen, and I thought, that was a very close. In my opinion, it was a pretty close fight. I'm going with Song decision. Both these guys don't really have the greatest of chins. I think Jae Song will get it done though. I just think his power might be the difference maker. The grappling might make him a little a little weary of using most of his power shots. So I could see a Chungadorj grappling smudging masterclass thingy-majiggy. Maybe gets beat up in the third. But we'll see. I got young Jae Song. I think his striking's a bit well. He can get subs on the ground, telling by his last fight. He locked up that sub on Jin quite fast. He got it, he just was like that. He jumped on it immediately as soon as he could get it. I don't think Chungadorj is that bad either. I think he's pretty decent. He did lose to this guy who's 14-9, so I can't really be like, oh yeah, he's definitely gonna win. There's a reason why the odds are so close, and the fact a lot of people are picking him is quite interesting. But I got Song, young Jae Song decision. Moving on, Joseph Larcinese versus Takaya Suzuki. I have Takaya Suzuki finish. And I'll say why. I will be honest, Joseph is pretty good exiting. Like, he's clean with his defense, He's defensively responsible. His fight with Arimoto was pretty close. He did beat Anthony Drillich, who I believe has a win over Shangauchi, and Shangauchi has a win over Steve Ursig. And I believe he had a win on the Contender Series as well. So Shangauchi did lose to Drillich, but that was pretty early doors, Shangauchi. And fuck Shangauchi, he's a boring bastard. But, you would imagine Joseph, he has some good sprawls. Joseph can sprawl, but I don't think Suzuki's going to shoot on him. I think Suzuki is very clean on the feet. He's very clean. If you watch him fight, after every exit, he shifts off. And maybe he could get caught like that, but I don't see Joseph having the reach and size to do that. I think someone later on in Suzuki's career could probably pull that off, but not right now. Joseph is at such a size disadvantage, a 4-inch, height disadvantage and a reach disadvantage, and it's going to be hard to imagine that when he throws that lead shot and he he gets out of range with his rear hand up, that he's going to get out of that without getting clipped with a lead, check hook or something. So it's hard to wrap my head around that Larcinese is going to get that done. I, however, have no belief in Joseph. Maybe Suzuki could take him 2 rounds, maybe 3 at most. But I will say Joseph is defensively responsible most of the time. But if he has to grapple this fight. If he tries to keep this on the feet, it will be a recipe for disaster and he will lose. I think Suzuki has this one. He has the cleaner striking. Just cleaner all around. I don't think Joseph is all that anyway. I mean, he did beat Arimoto, but once again, close fight. He did show good sprawls, good defense, responsible defense, but I think Suzuki's speed and power will be too much. I mean, he hit Outgun Batar, Bold Batar, with a very clean inside hook, and Bulbasaur immediately crumbled. And he had fallen, it didn't even look like a very hard shot, but I believe it was an inside check hook while he was going in, pressuring in to try to get a clinch, I believe. Is that, if I remember correctly, he tried to, pressure into a clinch, It did not work out for him, and he got caught, put down, and just ground and pounded finish. And it was very clean from Suzuki. And Suzuki is young, so hopefully he doesn't drag it into a firefight. Joseph is 27 and he's balding. All you need to know. Machi Fukuda versus Meng. Fukuda has really decent wrestling, and a lot of people are picking her. Meng Boa is what they call her on the commentary. Has a win over Ailinuer early doors, so I don't know how much you can really count that. She did lose to Chagnaadorj in one championship. She also lost to Ayaka Miura. You know, striking wise, I'm pretty sure Zhang is an older lady. She's an aunt, you know. And she lost to Angela Hill. But, you know, she has a win over, opponent, That was they were hyping up this Matsuda girl. I believe she had her own promo package heading into the fight. And that was odd. And I think Fukuda has really good ground and pound as well. So, I don't know. Let me take a second. I think Fukuda could get this one done with ground and pound. You know, Meng. Meng Boa here is a pretty good striker, I would say. She knows how to keep the distance. You know, she can strike. I think Fukuda, the size disadvantage for Fukuda could be detrimental to her game, because if she has to get Meng on the cage and has to lift her on a single, it's going to be hell because of the height disadvantage. But, we'll see come the 28th. I predict I'm playing Meng Boa decision. That's what I got. I think Fukuda is good on the ground. She's young, she's still green. She has time to improve. I just, she beat some cans in Ryzen. Beat another can. Beat this girl, But I got Meng Boa decision. Moving on. I think her striking will be too much for Fukuda. Moving on. Kasib Murdoch versus Rabindra Dhant. We'll just call him Dhant. Murdoch is a bit of a blanket. This probably won't be the funnest of fights. Murdoch is also a midget. If you watch him fight, he's a very small guy. Dhant, not so much. I think that might give... Bro, this Murdoch guy, low-key kind of... these New Zealanders, Australians, they think they're Volk. The smaller guys do. I don't know what it is. This Murdoch guy, he moves laterally like he's trying to be something. You know what I mean? He's trying to be that. He's trying to be him. You know what I mean? He does have some talent, but in the Minami fight, you knew... I'm not even going to try it. Minami. He was getting pieced up early. Can't lie. He was getting pieced up early with some big shots. He ate him, grinded to him. He got the takedowns, and then he just, kind of wet blanketed him, if I'm being honest. It was not fun to watch. It was if you like grappling, watch that fight. He really did pulverize Minami slowly. He made Minami carry him. He did what he had to, but it was not fun to the eyes. And Dhant beat some midget, and Kimbert. We'll call him Kimbert. And Kimbert was on short notice, and he was a midget. So I think Murdoch has the better fundamental grappling. I think his wrestling's better. I mean, he's not afraid to start ground and pounding. He low-key kind of has the Anthony Smith nose. He has the pig heart nose. But man, Dhant lost to friggin' some guy from one championship, which probably isn't too bad because a lot of those guys are pretty good actually. But he's been kind of decently active. I just don't see where Dhant is going to be amazingly better. I think this would be a competitive fight-ish. I don't think... this is... The odds are pretty close. Yeah, they're decently close. If Dhant wins, I'll be shocked. Can't lie. I believe... Yeah. You got to Road to UFC by beating the guy who's also on the Road to UFC. That makes no sense. Moving on... My bad if my pitch has changed. Yeah, I got Murdoch decision. Outgrapples. Dhant. Ahejiang Ailinuer. Ahejiang. Whatever. Ahejiang. I wouldn't count Ahejiang out. I think he's good in the clinch. He finds it well. He might be an issue for George Mangos because he does have those gnarly knee to the Achilles strikes. If y'all remember those, he has some really gnarly, Achilles strikes. He has good grappling. I don't know who Sabir is, but he was he racked up a can crusher. Guan Hu Lim. I think Ahejiang, I think that's his name. I think he's good in the clinch. I think he could give George Mango some issues. I, however, do not see him winning this fight. I think at best we see Ahejiang take, a grappling approach, gets George Mango's down, holds him there, works to the ground and pound a little. And then George Mangos comes back and finishes him. I won't count him out, though, because we could see a Radley De Silva remake. I got a round 2 finish for George Mangos. We could see a Radley De Silva, but it doesn't go to plan for Ahejiang. But you would imagine he's going to be practicing the grappling. And I rate Yuito Yanagawa. Yanagawa, he had a really good scramble in the George Mangos fight. He tried to lock up a guillotine. That's where it kind of took a turn for the worse for Yanagawa. But he had some good scrambles. He landed a good elbow on George Mangos. So that's where I'm saying, the clinch work might be the difference factor in this fight. It's because George doesn't have the greatest of clinch defenses or, getting off the clinch. He'll engage in it for no reason when he could easily get off, break the clinch, and, start fighting in open space. But that's up to him and his fight IQ to pull it through for the bettors and the pickers. But I think he'll get this one done. I think we'll be a bit more competitive than... this is squash match prediction territory, you know what I mean? This is not a squash match. He has experience under his belt. George Mangos also has some decent experience. 17-8. But I rate the Yanagawa one. So, Yanagawa is pretty talented. If you watch that fight back, he has good scrambles, but no more glazing the opponent. George Mangos, if he did not get Radley De Silva, I think we would have seen him in the UFC. I really do. And I wish he didn't have to go through all this bullshit in the Road to UFC. He's UFC material. If we're signing Gage Young, we can sign George Mangos. You know what I mean? Just get him in there. You know what I mean? I'm pretty sure friggin'... I don't really remember any featherweight pullouts. But you know what? You could have just done him versus Tommy McMillan or something instead of that Luigi Vendramini guy stepping in. There's things. Hopefully we see him in the UFC. I do not want to see... George Mangos be blocked from the UFC. I think he's UFC material 100%. And I hope to see him there. Radley De Silva is fighting, I believe, the same day, maybe the day before. He's fighting some can. Hopefully he wins that. De Silva, on the other hand, showed pretty impressive grappling skills. Boring as shit. Impressive grappling skills. He didn't get the finish, though, against Mangos, but we'll see what those two guys' futures consist of. Moving on. Treston Vines versus Yelijahati. I'm not going to try to even pronounce that. Man, I would like to go Treston Vines, but you see this? Treston Vines is this bad. Regardless, he did lose to Ateba Gutierrez, but he hasn't fought since, and he's not active. Ethan Hughes, some can crushing. 1-0. Both these guys kind of suck, I can't lie. Yeah, both these guys kind of stink. This will come down to whoever has the best KO power. And at least, you know, Yalijati, or whatever his name is, he's at least getting the cans out of there with TKOs. You know, granted, Treston Vines is also getting them out of there, but 0-7, 5-0? You're not even in, like, the early days of career. Like, this was his 4th fight, which makes sense. This is, like, what? About his 2 fights removed. 8th-ish fight, and he's 10-4. He's not good. You know, that's his 8th win. That would be around his 11th fight. And you're fighting 0-7 guys. I also wanted to show y'all, before I had, in the last take, what am I saying? In my last take of this video, Takeru Uchida was fighting that other dude, and it was still on, and I wasn't going to pick it because Takeru missed weight, and that fight will no longer happen, but Tapology updated it, and, you know, this is our co-main, and I'm picking Maimaitijiang. We'll just call him Zhang. I'm not going to try to pronounce that name. I'll butcher it intently. Not intently. Mistakenly. There we go. And the main event. The moment we've all been waiting for, right, guys? This is the point of the video, right? Maheshate decision. But in all seriousness, I think Maheshate is actually pretty good. He's decent, you know, I don't think he's pretty good. He has one over Steve Garcia, you know. Darrius Flowers, his last 2 wins are literally from accidental slams. Like, he's not even winning these fights, like, legitimately. He's slamming people, and they're just getting hurt, and then he wins. Like, the Venata fight. He slams Venata, and he pops his rib, gets a finish from it. His win on the Contender Series. Slams the guy, gets a shoulder injury, gets a win, gets signed. Like, he's not earning these wins how you're supposed to. He's getting them off of, like, fluke slams. Granted, Jake Matthews is pretty decent. Michael Johnson's okay now. You know, he's old. That was 38-year-old Michael Johnson, 37-year-old. Evan Elder's also good. I want to see Evan Elder come back. He's good. Like, Evan Elder is good. Like, these last 3 aren't bad losses. But, you know, you would imagine Darrius Flowers is gone by now, and he's getting another fight, which is ridiculous. But Maheshate has lost to the, you know, he lost to Gage Young, and I don't think Gage Young is that bad. I think he arguably could have won against Dorsonville. If we're being honest, he arguably could have won that fight, depending how you look at it. He did lose to Nicholas Mota, but Nicholas Mota beat Tom Nolan, who's ranked. You know what I mean? He did also lose to Borshev, but Borshev is an interesting fight for a lot of people. You know, he's a crafty unk, and, you know, he took Tom Nolan 3 rounds. You know, Borshev also colded Chris Duncan, who was almost ranked. You know, Borshev he's okay, you know. I believe he took, was it Nazem Sadikov to a draw? Let me make sure real fast before I move on out of this, just real quick. I believe Borshev took some, I think it was Sadikov to a draw. I could be totally mistaken. But Maheshate has a win over Steve Garcia. You know, Gabriel Benitez, whoever takes him. He he won the Contender Series, beat Steve Garcia, and then beat Gabriel Benitez, who was pretty much a journeyman. But Borshev, I believe, isn't the worst. Yeah, it was Nazem Sadikov. Didn't Sadikov have... Oh, no, I'm thinking about the wrong thing. But yeah, Borshev isn't the greatest, but, he's a tricky guy. He's a tricky unk. You know what I mean? There's stylistic matchups that just don't work. And this is a stylistic matchup that works for Maheshate. And I think he's going to get this one done. I think he's going to get a decision over Darius Flowers. Now, granted, Darius Flowers is a pretty tough fucker, But Maheshate just got to win outside the UFC, not the greatest of opponent. But he's turning around like how you're supposed to if you want to be back, I got him to win this fight. I believe he was bald in that friggin' Gage Young fight. But I got Maheshate. I think he gets it done with his striking. He's not a bum, you know what I mean? Leno Venata isn't the greatest. And, whoever this guy also isn't that bad, but he got fluked. And that's the thing, Darius Flowers beats people by accidentally beating them. He doesn't do it legitly. If you know what I mean. He's beating them, but not how you're supposed to beat them. He gets wins off of injuries. Venata got injured technically in that fight where his rib popped. But Venata was kind of being an idiot. I believe he was, hanging on to it. Maybe I'm mistaken. Maybe he just got picked up and body slammed like how, it usually happens. But reviewing the picks, we're going all the way to the bottom. I have Abdueva decision over Bo-Hyung Park. Bo-Hyung Park could be an interesting fight for Abdueva. Maybe we see some grittiness from Abdueva. We have to see that. Chungreng Koren versus Ryu Tajima. I have Tajima KO round 1. I don't think Koren is good at all. The odds should not be this close, in my opinion, but we move on. I have Young Jae Song over Chagnaadorj. I also have Takaya Suzuki, round 1 finish over Joseph Larcinese. And I have Meng over Machi Fukuda, my bad. Machi, whatever her name is, you know what I mean? Kagutu Kamachi? Random ass nickname. And I have Murdoch over Dhant. And I have George Mangos over this guy. I also have this dude over Treston Vines. Treston Vines is trash. Keep it real. And I have Maheshate over Darrius Flowers. I'll probably make a reaction video. I will probably have to be up late for all this. It's going to be rough. It's going to be rough. I can't lie. It's going to be rough. Anyway, I'm looking forward to all this. Suzuki, man. I'm looking forward to Suzuki the most. Anyways, that's it. Goodbye. Oh, let me lock in the picks. Alright, those are my picks. There's my topology. If you want to see every other pick. Don't worry, tomorrow we're coming back for the fight night predictions, or probably later today. This is coming out at 1 a.m. Anyway, goodbye, fellas. Goodbye.